The ship broke apart in the dark of space. Metal screamed. Fire bloomed in the cold vacuum. And somewhere in the chaos, a woman named crawled into an escape pod and pressed the launch button. She was not a pilot. She was not a soldier. She was a scientist who studied animals on distant worlds. 3 hours ago, she had been eating rice and reading reports in her small room on the research vessel. Then the alarm started screaming. Then people started running. Then someone grabbed her arm and pushed her into the pod and told her to go. Now she was falling through the sky of a world she did not know. The pod hit the ground hard. Everything went black for a moment. When opened her eyes again, smoke was filling the small space. Red lights were flashing. Warning sounds were beeping everywhere. She found the door release and pushed. The metal panel fell away and she crawled out onto soft ground. The first thing she noticed was the color. The grass beneath her hands was purple. The trees around her were silver. The sky above was orange with streaks of pink, and 2 small moons hung in the daylight like pale coins. She was alive. That was the only good thing she could think of. Her body hurt everywhere. Blood was running down her face from a cut she did not remember getting. Her left arm was bruised and swollen, but she could move. She could think. She could survive. Maybe. Pulled herself up and looked around. The escape pod had crashed in a small clearing surrounded by tall silver trees. Purple flowers grew in patches between the roots. Strange sounds came from the forest. Bird calls that were not quite right. Animal noises she had never heard before. She was alone on an alien world with no way to call for help. No, wait, the emergency beacon. She climbed back into the damaged pod and searched through the wreckage. She found a medical kit, some food packets, a water filter, a small knife. And there, under a broken panel, the emergency beacon. She pulled it out and turned it on. A small red light started blinking. The signal was being sent. Someone would come. She just had to stay alive until then. That first day was about survival. Cleaned and bandaged her wounds. She found a stream with clear water. She ate one of the food packets even though she was not hungry. She pulled useful things from the broken pod and piled them near a large tree. When night came, she built a small fire and sat with her back against the pod. The darkness was full of sounds, rustling in the bushes, calls in the distance, something large moving through the trees far away. She held her small knife and did not sleep. The second day was the same, and the third. She built a better shelter using pieces of the pod and branches from the silver trees. She learned which water was safe to drink. She watched the forest and tried to understand it. On the fourth day, she saw them. At first, she thought they were wolves. They had the same shape, pointed ears, long snouts, thick fur. But as they came closer, she saw the differences. They were bigger than any wolf she had ever seen. Their fur was silver like the trees. They had 6 legs instead of 4, and their eyes were the color of melted copper, bright and strange and fixed on her with terrible focus. There were 5 of them. They came out of the forest slowly, spreading out, surrounding her camp in a wide circle. Stopped breathing. Her hand found the knife, but she knew it would not help. These creatures could kill her before she could even raise the blade. The largest one stepped forward. He was a male, she thought, old and strong, with scars across his face from many fights. He stopped a few steps away from her and sat down. Just sat down, like a dog waiting for its owner. The others did the same. They sat in their circle and watched her with those copper eyes. Did not understand. Were they hunting her? Were they curious? Were they waiting for something? She lowered the knife slowly. "I am not going to hurt you," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I do not know if you understand me, but I am not dangerous. I am just lost." The male tilted his head. He made a sound, low and deep, almost like a cat purring. Then he stood up and walked toward her. Wanted to run. Every part of her body was screaming at her to run, but she stayed still. She did not know why. Something in those copper eyes told her that running would be wrong. The creature stopped right in front of her. He was so close she could feel his warm breath. He smelled like meat and something sweet, like flowers after rain. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against her shoulder, just for a moment. A gentle touch. Then he pulled back, turned around, and walked into the forest. The others followed him, disappearing like silver ghosts. Stood there for a long time, shaking. What had just happened? Over the next few days, they kept coming back. The male, who she started calling in her mind. A smaller female with a torn ear, who she named. A young male who was always curious, who she called. They watched her. They followed her when she gathered water. They sat outside her shelter at night, but they never attacked. They never threatened. On the seventh day, brought her a gift. A dead animal, purple-furred with too many legs. He dropped it at her feet and sat down, watching her with those bright copper eyes. It was food he was feeding her. Did not know what to say. She did not know what to think. But she took the gift and cooked it over her fire while the creatures watched. That night they stayed closer than before. They formed a circle around her camp, like guards, like protectors, like family. Looked up at the orange sky and the two pale moons. Someone would come for her eventually. The beacon was still blinking. Help would arrive. But until then, she was not alone. She did not know it yet, but this was only the beginning of something much bigger than survival. 3 weeks passed on the purple moon. Had stopped counting the days and started counting the things she had learned. She learned which plants were safe to touch and which ones burned the skin. She learned how to read the weather by watching the color of the sky. She learned the sounds of the forest, which calls meant danger and which ones were just the normal noise of life. And she learned about the creatures, the ones she had started calling the pack. They came every day now, with his face, with her torn ear, with his endless curiosity. Sometimes others joined them, creatures from other groups who seemed to follow lead. They would sit near her camp for hours, watching her work, watching her live. Talk to them constantly. She knew they could not understand her words, but talking made her feel less crazy. She told them about Earth, about her family, about her work studying animals on distant planets. She told them she was scared and lonely and grateful that they had not eaten her. They listened, or seemed to listen. Their copper eyes followed her movements. Their ears turned toward her voice. She was starting to feel like she belonged here. Then one morning, everything changed. Woke to the sound of crying. Not human crying, something else. A high, thin sound of pain that made her heart hurt just to hear it. She grabbed her knife and stepped out of her shelter. A young female was standing at the edge of her camp. Had never seen this one before. She was smaller than the others, probably not fully grown. Her silver fur was dirty and stuck together with dried blood. And her back leg was badly hurt. The wound was terrible. The flesh was torn open all the way to the bone. The skin around it was red and swollen with infection. Yellow fluid was leaking from between the damaged muscle. The smell hit from 3 meters away, the smell of rotting meat and sickness. The young female looked at with eyes full of pain. She cried again, that thin sound that cut like a knife. Behind her, at the edge of the forest, saw more creatures watching, not just the pack she knew. There were others, many others, old ones with white fur around their faces, young ones hiding behind their mothers, strong ones with scars from hunting. They had all come, they were all watching. They had brought this injured creature to her. Understood then. She did not know how they knew. She did not know how word had spread. But somehow these creatures had learned that there was a human in the forest, and they had decided that the human could help. Because humans were healers, that was what humans did. Put down her knife. She walked toward the injured female slowly, keeping her hands visible. "Easy," she said softly. "Easy, little one, I know it hurts. I'm going to try to help you." The creature flinched when got close, but she did not run. She was too weak, too sick, too desperate for help. Knelt beside her and looked at the wound. It was bad, very bad. The infection had spread deep into the muscle. Without treatment, this creature would die. Maybe in days, maybe in hours. She went to her shelter and got her medical kit. She had basic supplies, antiseptic, bandages, a needle and thread for stitches, pain medicine that probably would not work on alien biology but was better than nothing. She came back and knelt beside the injured creature again. "This is going to hurt," she said. "I am sorry, but I have to clean the wound. I have to get the infection out. Do you understand?" The creature just looked at her with those copper eyes. She did not understand the words, but something in its voice seemed to calm her. "Got to work." She cleaned the wound with water first. The creature cried out but did not fight. She picked out the dead tissue, the parts that had started to rot. The creature shook and whimpered but stayed still. She poured antiseptic into the wound and the creature screamed, a sound that echoed through the forest and made the watchers shift nervously. But still the young female did not run. She trusted the human. Worked for hours. She stitched the torn muscle back together. She closed the outer wound as best she could. She wrapped the whole leg in clean bandages and tied them tight. When it was done, she sat back and let out a long breath. The creature was still alive. The wound was clean. The infection would take time to heal, but the worst was over. The young female lifted her head and looked at. Something had changed in those copper eyes. The pain was still there, but something else too. Trust, gratitude, maybe even love. She pressed her head against his chest and made a soft sound, almost like purring. Held her gently and felt tears running down her own face. "You are welcome," she whispered. "You are so welcome." Behind her she heard movement, was walking toward her. The other watchers were coming closer too. They surrounded her, dozens of silver bodies forming a circle around the human and the creature she had saved. Pressed his head against shoulder, the same gesture he had made on that first day, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like welcome, like acceptance, like family. One by one, the other creatures came forward. They touched their noses to his hands. They made soft sounds of respect. They looked at her with copper eyes full of something she could not name. She was not just a strange visitor anymore. She was one of them. The next day more creatures came. A mother with a sick cub, an old male who could barely see, a young female with thorns stuck deep in her side. They brought their wounded, they brought their sick, they brought their broken. They brought them to the human. Did not turn any of them away. She worked from sunrise to sunset, cleaning wounds, making medicine from plants, learning through trial and error what helped and what hurt. She was not a doctor, she was not trained for this, but she learned, she had to. Because they trusted her, and she would not let them down. The little one came on a cold morning when fog hung thick between the silver trees. His mother carried him in her mouth like something precious. She was limping, tired from walking many days. Her copper eyes were dull with exhaustion and bright with fear at the same time. She put the cub down in front of him and made a sound. A plea, a prayer, "Help him, please help him." Looked at the small body and felt her heart crack. He was tiny, the smallest cub she had ever seen. His silver fur was thin and patchy. His legs were too skinny. His head was too big for his body. And he was burned, badly burned. The wounds covered most of his body. His fur was gone in large patches. The skin underneath was red and blistered and weeping with clear fluid. Some areas had turned black. The smell of damaged flesh filled the air. Did not know what had burned him. Maybe he had fallen into one of the hot springs that bubbled up from the ground in some parts of the forest. Maybe lightning. Maybe something else. It did not matter now. What mattered was that he was hurt and his mother had walked for days to bring him to the human healer. "Oh no," whispered. "Oh, little one, what happened to you?" The cub looked up at her. His eyes were the same copper color as all the others, but they seemed bigger in his small face. Despite everything, despite the terrible pain he must be feeling, there was something bright in those eyes. something alive, something that refused to give up. He made a small sound, almost like a question. Wanted to cry. Instead, she got to work. Burn treatment was hard. She knew that from her training, from her studies, from everything she had learned about medicine over the years. Burns got infected easily. Burns took a long time to heal. Burns left scars that lasted forever. And she did not have proper supplies. She did not have a hospital. She only had her small medical kit and the plants she had learned to use. But she had to try. She worked all day. She cleaned each burn carefully with water she had boiled and cooled. She made a paste from healing plants she had found in the forest. She covered the worst wounds with soft bandages made from leaves. The cub cried throughout, small sounds of pain that broke her heart over and over, but he did not fight her. He did not try to bite or scratch. He just lay there and trusted her to help him. His mother watched from nearby. She did not move. She did not make a sound. She just watched with those copper eyes full of hope and fear. When it was finally done, the cub looked like a small wrapped package. Bandages covered most of his body. Only his face and his thin tail were showing. "There," said softly, "that is the best I can do. Now you need to rest and heal." She gave him water. She gave him small pieces of soft meat. She made a warm bed for him near her shelter. The mother stayed for 2 days. She lay beside her cub and watched over him. She watched change the bandages. She watched apply fresh medicine. She watched everything with careful attention. Then on the 3rd morning she touched her nose to her cub's head. She made a long, sad sound, and she walked away into the forest. She was leaving him with the human. Understood. The mother had other cubs to feed, a pack to return to, a life that could not wait. She could not stay here forever. But she trusted to keep her smallest, weakest baby safe. Named him, it was not his real name. His real name was a sound she could not make with her human mouth, but felt right somehow. He healed slowly, day by day, week by week. The burns closed and became scars. His fur started growing back in patches. He got stronger. He started moving around the camp, exploring everything with endless curiosity. But he would not leave the bandages alone. Burns itched terribly as they healed, knew this. The new skin was sensitive, the bandages rubbed and irritated, and was young. He did not understand why he had to leave them alone. Every time turned her back, he was pulling at them, chewing on them, trying to scratch the healing skin underneath. One morning she found him surrounded. Other creatures had gathered at her camp, adults from different packs, some she knew, some she did not. They had formed a circle around who was sitting in the middle, pulling at the bandage on his back leg with his small teeth. The adults watched but did not stop him. They did not know how. They could hunt. They could fight. They could protect their young from enemies, but this was different. This problem needed something they did not have. They needed the human. Walked into the circle. The creatures moved aside to let her pass. She knelt down in front of. "Hey," she said gently. "Hey, little one, what are you doing?" Looked up at her. The bandage was still in his mouth. His copper eyes were guilty but stubborn. "I know it itches," said. "I know it feels bad, but you have to leave it alone. If you pull off the bandage, the wound will get dirty. It will hurt more. Do you understand?" He did not understand her words, but something in her voice made him stop. He let go of the bandage and looked at her. She checked his wounds, changed the damaged bandages, put fresh medicine on the healing skin. The whole time stayed calm. He trusted her. When she was done, he climbed into her lap and pressed his small body against her chest. He was warm and soft and alive. He made a small sound of contentment. Around them, the circle of creatures had not moved. They were still watching, but something had changed in their copper eyes, something like wonder, something like respect. An old female walked forward. She was one of the eldest creatures had ever seen. Her fur was almost white with age. Her eyes were clouded, but she moved with a dignity that made everyone else stay quiet. She touched her nose to his forehead. Then she made a sound, not a bark or a growl or a howl, something else, almost like a word. She said it 3 times and the other creatures repeated it. Did not know what it meant, but she felt it in her heart. Mother Healer, one of us, fell asleep in her arms. The creatures settled around her, forming a warm circle of silver fur and copper eyes. Held the sleeping cub and looked up at the orange sky. She had been trying to survive, waiting to be rescued. But somewhere along the way, she had become something more. She had become family. The emergency beacon had been blinking for 47 days when the ship finally came. Was sitting outside her shelter changing bandages for the last time. His wounds had finally healed. The fur had grown back over most of the scars. He was still small for his age, but he was strong now, healthy, alive. She was just finishing when she heard the sound. A deep rumble from above, an engine noise that did not belong to this world. She looked up and saw a silver shape cutting through the orange clouds, a ship coming down, coming for her. Her heart jumped. After all this time, after all these weeks, someone had finally found her signal. But as she watched the ship descend, another feeling grew in her chest, not happiness, not relief. Fear. She looked around at her camp, at the shelter she had built with her own hands, at the medicine she had made from forest plants, at the creatures who had gathered nearby, watching the sky with nervous copper eyes. Stood beside her. His face was turned upward, a low growl was building in his chest. Pressed himself against her legs and whimpered. The first creature she had healed came to stand on her other side. Behind her, dozens of others were gathering, silver shapes moving out of the forest, forming a protective wall around the human. They were scared. They had never seen anything like this ship before. "It is okay," said, though she was not sure she believed it. "They are here to help me." The ship landed far away on the other side of the forest. Could not see it through the trees, but she heard it. Engines stopping, doors opening, voices calling. Her communication device crackled. She had fixed it weeks ago, hopping for this moment. "Doctor," a voice came through, strange but speaking her language. "This is Commander Kell of the Galactic Union ship Bright Star. We received your emergency signal. Are you injured? Are you in danger?" Picked up the device with shaking hands. "Commander Kell, I am alive. I am not badly hurt, but I need you to listen to me very carefully." "Go ahead, Doctor." "There are creatures here, many of them. They are not dangerous to me, but they might seem dangerous to your team. I need your people to put down their weapons before they come to my camp. Do you understand?" Silence on the other end. Then Kell's voice again, confused. "What do you mean, not dangerous? What kind of creatures?" Looked at his face and his copper eyes, and his massive body that could kill a human in seconds. "They are predators," she said. "But they are also my friends, my family. If your team comes in with weapons raised, they will see it as a threat. Things will go badly, but if you come in peace, everything will be fine." More silence. Then, "We are coming, but Doctor, if anything seems wrong, we will protect ourselves. Just trust me, please." She turned off the device and waited. It took 20 minutes for the rescue team to reach her camp. She could hear them coming through the forest, heavy boots on soft ground, equipment making noise, voices speaking in low tones. Then they stepped into the clearing. There were 5 of them. Commander Kell was in front. He was tall and thin, with feathered skin and large dark eyes. Not human, but not completely strange either. Behind him were 4 others, all different species, all carrying weapons. They stopped when they saw the creatures. Stood in the middle of her camp, surrounded by silver-furred predators. Was at her right shoulder, massive and dangerous looking. Was at her left. Sat at her feet, his copper eyes fixed on the strangers. Behind her the pack waited, 40 or 50 creatures, watching the newcomers with careful attention. Commander Kell made a strange sound. His feathers stood up all over his body. His crew raised their weapons. "Stop," said sharply. "Lower your weapons now." "Doctor, those creatures could." "They could kill all of you before you fired a single shot," interrupted. "But they will not, because I am telling them you are not a threat. If you raise your weapons, you prove me wrong. Do you want that?" Kell stared at her, then at the creatures, then back at her. Slowly he lowered his weapon. He made a gesture and his crew did the same. His growl stopped. He did not relax, but he stopped showing his teeth. "How?" Kell asked. His voice was full of wonder. "How are you still alive? These are apex predators. They should have killed you on the first day." Almost laughed. "They probably thought about it, but they chose differently. They watched me. They brought me food. And then," she paused, looking for the right words, "they brought me their wounded. They're wounded. They're sick, they're hurt, they're bobbies." She touched his head gently. "This one was burned almost to death. His mother carried him for days to reach me, because she heard there was a human in the forest, a healer, someone who could make the pain stop." Kell's feathers slowly settled. His dark eyes moved across the camp, taking in everything: the shelter, the medicine, the bandages, the creatures sitting calmly despite the strangers in their territory. "This is impossible," he said softly. "No," replied. "This is human. This is what we do. We see something in pain and we help it. We cannot stop ourselves. It is in our nature." She smiled tiredly. "They saw that. Somehow they understood, and they decided to trust me." Kell was quiet for a long moment. Then he holstered his weapon completely and held up his empty hands. "Doctor," he said, "I have served in the Galactic Union for 30 years. I have been part of many first contact situations. Most of them ended badly: fear, misunderstanding, fighting." He shook his head. "I have never seen anything like this. A human alone on an alien world, trusted by predators, treating their wounds, becoming part of their family." "I did what anyone would do," said. "No," Kell's voice was firm. "Most people would have hidden. Most people would have fought. Most people would have died." He looked at the creatures surrounding her. "You did something different. You cared. And they knew it." "Stepped forward then." He walked past, until he was standing directly in front of Commander Kell. The alien commander did not move, did not breathe. Studied him with those copper eyes. Then slowly he sat down, not in a threatening crouch, just sitting, watching, waiting. It was a test, realized, was deciding if this stranger could be trusted. Kell seemed to understand too. He stayed perfectly still. He kept his hands visible. He met eyes without looking away, but also without challenging. Long seconds passed, then made that rumbling sound, the one that was almost like purring. He turned and walked back to side. He had decided the strangers could stay. Let out a breath she had not known she was holding. "Commander," she said, "we have a lot to talk about." Meeting room on the ship was cold and bright. Sat in a metal chair, wearing clean clothes for the first time in months. She had taken a shower. She had eaten real food. She had talked to her family through a communication screen and cried when she saw their faces. But now she had to make a choice. Commander Kell sat across from her. A screen between them showed images of the moon below, the purple forests, the silver trees, the creatures moving through the landscape like ghosts. "The Galactic Union has rules for situations like this," Kell said. "When we find a new intelligent species, we follow a process. We send research teams. We set up observation stations. We study them. We learn their language. Eventually, we welcome them into the galactic community." Nodded slowly. "And what happens to them during all that studying?" "They are protected. No one is allowed to hurt them or take their land. But they are also watched, observed, treated like specimens in a laboratory." Kell's feathers shifted uncomfortably. "The process is meant to help them." "Help them by turning them into research projects," shook her head. "Commander, you saw what I built down there. You saw how they trust me. That trust took months to earn. It is fragile and precious. The moment you send researchers who see them as animals to study, that trust will break. What would you suggest instead? Had been thinking about this since the moment she saw the ship in the sky. The answer had come to her slowly, like dawn breaking over the forest. "Let me stay," she said. Kel blinked. "What?" "Let me stay here, not as a stranded survivor but as an official representative. A liaison between humanity and these creatures. I already have their trust. I already know them. I can help any researchers you send approach them the right way. I can translate. I can protect them from mistakes." "Doctor, that would mean giving up your old life, your family, your career, everything you had before." Thought about Earth, about her small apartment with its window that looked out on a busy street, about her job studying creatures from far away without ever really knowing them, about her parents, who loved her but had always worried she was too lonely. She thought about who cried when she left for the ship, about who watched her go with copper eyes full of something that looked like sadness, about and all the others who had become her family. "Commander," she said slowly, "I have not felt alone since the second week after I crashed. Every day they came to see me. Every night they slept near my shelter to keep me safe. They brought me food. They brought me their wounded. They trusted me with their children." She leaned forward. "I would be more alone on Earth than I could ever be on that moon." Kel studied her face for a long moment. His dark eyes were searching for doubt, for fear, for any sign that she did not mean what she was saying. He found nothing but certainty. "I will contact Union headquarters," he said finally. "This is not a normal situation. There will be discussions, arguments, but I will support your request." "Thank you." Dr. Kel leaned forward too. "For what it is worth, I think this is the right choice. I have seen many first contact situations go wrong, fear and misunderstanding on both sides. But what you built down there is different. It is what first contact should be. Trust, compassion, family." He paused. "The galaxy needs more humans like you." 3 days later, returned to the moon. The shuttle landed in the clearing near her old camp. When the door opened, she saw them waiting. They had not moved. For 3 days they had stayed in a circle around the place where she had lived, waiting for her to come back. Was the first to reach her. He ran on his strong legs, his silver fur shining in the sunlight, and threw himself against her so hard she almost fell. He made sounds of joy and relief and love that needed no words. Knelt down and held him close. "I am here," she whispered. "I am not leaving, never again." Came next. He pressed his head against her shoulder and stayed there for a long time. When he pulled back, his copper eyes were bright. The others came one by one, with her leg, with her torn ear, with his curious eyes. The old female whose name sounded like wind through leaves. All of them touching her, welcoming her, telling her without words that she was home. Commander Kel watched from the shuttle. His crew stood behind him, silent. "This is why I am staying," said, looking back at him. "Not for science, not for the Union, for them, because they chose me and I choose them." Kel nodded slowly. "We will send supplies, equipment, medicine. We will build you a proper research station. But this is your world now, Doctor, your people. The Union will follow your lead." 3 years passed. The research station stood at the edge of the purple forest. It was small but comfortable, with big windows that looked out on the silver trees. Lived there with, who had grown into a strong young adult but still refused to leave her side. Scientists came sometimes, diplomats, curious visitors from across the galaxy. They all wanted to see the human who had been adopted by predators. They all wanted to understand how it was possible. Always told them the same thing. "I saw a creature in pain," she would say, "and I helped." That was it, that was all. The simple truth that humans sometimes forgot about themselves. Humans were healers. It was in their nature. They saw suffering and could not look away. They reached out even when it was dangerous. They cared even when it was not logical. The creatures had seen that. They had looked at this strange two-legged being with no claws and no fangs and no fur, and they had seen something worth trusting. One evening, sat outside her station and watched the sun set. The sky turned pink and gold and deep purple. In the distance, the pack was singing, their voices rising together in something that sounded like music. Lay beside her, his warm body pressed against her leg. His copper eyes were closed. His breathing was slow and peaceful. Listen to the song. After 3 years, she could understand some of it now. Words for hunt and home and family. Words for danger and safety and love. And sometimes, in the middle of the song, she heard a word that sounded almost like her name. The name they had given her. The word the old female had spoken that day when pulled at his bandage, and the whole pack looked to the human for help. Healer, mother, one of us. She belonged here. This was her home. These were her people. And she would never leave. The stars came out, bright and strange and beautiful. Somewhere up there, Earth was spinning around its yellow sun. Her parents were sleeping in their small house. Her old life was continuing without her. But did not feel sad. She felt complete. She had gone looking for alien life among the stars. She had found something better. She had found a family. And in the end, that was what humans always did. They crossed impossible distances. They survived impossible dangers. And wherever they went, they found ways to connect, to help, to love. That was humanity's gift to the universe. Not weapons or technology or conquest. Just compassion, just kindness, just the simple, powerful choice to help someone in pain. Rumbled in his sleep, dreaming of running through silver trees. Smiled and watched the stars until sleep finally found her too.